Welcome to the driver's seat. We're here with the all-new 2025 Toyota Land Cruiser. Now, as a Land Cruiser owner for the past 25 years, I feel like I know Land Cruisers. But this particular one is a massive departure from the outgoing one, which was the 200 series. The V8 engine has been replaced with a twin-turbo, four-cylinder hybrid engine. Now, the horsepower and torque numbers are fine, but it's still a four-cylinder. It's not a V8. So that's a big departure. This is the first time we don't have a normally aspirated engine in a Land Cruiser in the US, so that's a big deal. The vehicle is definitely smaller. Basically, Toyota has said, you know what, Sequoia, you take the full-size SUV market, and we're going to focus more on being a competitor to the Defender and the Bronco, Wrangler, etc. A little more upscale. Starting price around $57,000, fully equipped about $72,000. Now, when these first came out, there were a lot of serious markups. There was even a first edition. Can't get that one anymore. There's basically a base model known as the 1958, and then the vehicle we're driving here, which is known as the wagon. It's a lovely vehicle. I think it's very durable. It has a lot of pros. I'm not excited about the powertrain, just too many components. 8-speed transmission works great, but Toyota has had some issues with other engines, the V6 with the twin-turbo hybrid. So far, so good on the four-cylinder. It's been a long time since we've driven in snow. Usually we're testing our vehicles in Southern California. It's 20 degrees here in Virginia, and as you can see, it just snowed. So it'll give us a little bit of a chance to test out the traction. And look, of course, this vehicle is made for this. I'm not even going to put it in snow mode. I'm just going to let it do its thing, because this isn't a lot of snow. It's actually called deep snow mode. One of the things I don't like about this vehicle are the tires. Now, Dunlop, Grand Trek have a tremendous reputation. That's what came standard on the last two Land Cruisers I've owned, and Toyota seems to be sticking with that. I prefer the BF Goodrich KO3s, and that's what I put on my Tundra. That's what I put on my Sprinter van, and I just think that they're a better tire, both on and off-road, to tell you the truth. But Toyota's chosen the Grand Trek, so be it. Obviously, they're working just fine on this. Not that this is extremely challenging conditions. They do have some nice off-road screens, a lot of settings, a lot of capability in general. Everything 99% of what you would ever need from an off-road vehicle, this will satisfy that. I mean, yes, if you're going to do some extreme things in Moab, that's a different story, but for most of your off-road needs, crawl control, hill descent control, the works. So as expected, it's loaded with nice gadgets. As you can see, the interior cabin of the Land Cruiser is not as roomy as the outgoing model. It's just a smaller vehicle. That's the way it is. And I have a little bit of headroom here, but not a ton. You have a nice big sunroof, and I like this mocha interior. It's nice. It doesn't really go with the blue, but it's better than what most vehicles have, which is the traditional black. But overall, it's a very easy vehicle to drive. It really feels a little more compact, not quite as bulky as the outgoing model. And you get used to the digital gauge cluster. You do have a nice head-up display, and the infotainment system is what it is. Toyota has continued to struggle with their infotainment, and nothing's really changed. The 8-speed automatic transmission is more than capable. I'm kind of glad they didn't put a 10-speed in here, but it works. We haven't really had a chance to test a lot of the off-road capabilities, but we're going to take Toyota's word at it that it's as capable as every Land Cruiser has always been, historically. It's just what they're built for. This vehicle is built in Japan, which is definitely a plus. I believe that certain vehicles in the Toyota lineup are still higher quality than others. The Land Cruiser and 4Runner in particular, those two vehicles, definitely much higher quality, in my opinion, than other Toyota vehicles. It is a two-row SUV. As you know, the last two Land Cruisers had a third row option. There is talk of putting that in here, but I think it'll be a little tight. So basically, it's a two-row, 5-passenger SUV. It is body on frame, which I like. It makes it a little bit heavier than a crossover. And to be fair, the all-wheel drive system in a Highlander and other vehicles, the four-wheel drive system in this, the lines are getting blurred so much that you almost can't tell the difference. And capability-wise, they're very similar. Body on frame, though, obviously is going to be a little more durable. When you look at the interior of the all-new Land Cruiser, it doesn't resemble the outgoing model in any way, shape, or form. You have a digital gauge cluster, a large, properly shaped infotainment screen. If you remember the outgoing model, it was almost like a 4x3. This is more kind of 16x9, maybe even wider than that. It's a 12-inch screen, and yeah, it's got a lot of cool gadgets. I'm more of an analog person, and I prefer that, especially in SUVs and trucks. But this is what Toyota has chosen to do. I do like the controls, and you know, overall, it's fine. You can hear some road noise, some wind noise, more than the outgoing model. The outgoing model was much better insulated. It was more of a luxury vehicle. This is meant to be much more practical. But then again, the starting price on this vehicle is $30,000 cheaper than the outgoing model. It's definitely a lot narrower, which is good for off-roading, but the interior cabin is smaller. What Toyota's basically saying is, if you want a big SUV, just buy our Sequoia. But the Land Cruiser, we're going back to our original roots, which is, you know, why there was the 1958 model, and that's where they're going to play. So one thing I've noticed about this Land Cruiser is it does have a fair amount of body roll, and you can kind of feel it right there. And the old Land Cruiser, the 200 series, seemed to be a lot more planted, but it was a bigger, heavier vehicle. So this 2.4 liter 4-cylinder twin turbo hybrid engine, and you have two electric motors that are powering that hybrid powertrain, produced 324 horsepower, which sounds like a good number. The old Land Cruiser was a V8, had 381 normally aspirated horsepower, and it's night and day, because there's nothing like a V8, and to replace a V8 with a 4-cylinder that's got all these components on it is asking a lot of this engine, but it's okay. 0 to 60 is around 7.5 seconds. Now the GX 550, because it has the V6 twin turbo, is closer to like 6.3 seconds. So big difference. If acceleration is important to you, you may want to opt for the GX. Really like the GX 550 Overtrail. It's a nice, certainly a nice, capable off-road vehicle. But I would have no problem driving this on a daily basis, and if you know your budget was around $65,000, then you can't really buy the GX. I would certainly opt for this over all the competitors, which include the Defender, the Bronco, and others. But those, I see those as the main two. We'll throw the Wrangler in there as well. But it's just a nice vehicle that makes a lot of sense. It's very practical. One thing I didn't like about the outgoing model was it just felt too luxurious, too much. Like I was almost worried about getting it dirty. Whereas this Land Cruiser, just from the way it looks and the way it's designed, it can take it. So I think Toyota kind of lost its way, which is why they had to do a reset, and that's what you're seeing here. So again, you know, it's nice that everything's been updated. This infotainment is a disaster, primarily because of what you have. You know, this infotainment system, Toyota's infotainment system, is just a disaster. always has been, and may always be. And the main thing is, for example, if I'm listening to Sirius XM, and Toyota's infotainment system has been a disaster for a long time, and even though they've made a lot of significant upgrades, they still have a long way to go. My main complaint is if I'm on XM and then I look at something on my phone or a website or whatever that has video on it, it switches to that, and now the source becomes my phone. And to get back to XM, I have to go back in there, or I have to hit this mode button. So it's just extra steps that other vehicles don't make you take. You know, maybe it's not that significant to you, but it is to me. But ironically, in my Tundra, which it's kind of an SR5 lower grade level, has a smaller screen, and you don't have that issue. So I don't know what's going on with Toyota, but I do wish they would address that, because that is a top consideration for many people. But the styling's great. I actually like the headlights on the 1958 better, but that model is just a little too base for me. So for those reasons, I would opt for this one. As we have been driving this vehicle for the past week, we're seeing more and more Land Cruisers on the road, and several GXs as well. So clearly Toyota has a home run with both of the vehicles, and I think the styling has a lot to do with it. The entry price point, also at 57 versus 87 for the outgoing model. It's capable, it's fun to drive. I wish it had a V6. That's my complaint. You know, over the past 3 years, Toyota has completely revamped all of their body-on-frame vehicles, which includes the 2 trucks, Tundra and Tacoma, and their 3 SUVs, Sequoia, Land Cruiser, and the 4Runner, which is coming out later this year. So all new platform, all new vehicles, really don't resemble anything that they've replaced. I think it's good, but they did get rid of everything that's normally aspirated. All of those used to be, now all of them are turbo or turbo hybrid. You have 4-cylinder and you have 6-cylinder. You know, in the past, the last 2 generations of Land Cruiser shared the platform with the LX. There was the LX 470 and LX 570. This one shares a platform with the GX, and we actually like the GX a lot better. You can watch that review if you like. That has the twin turbo V6 engine, and it's just a lot more powerful. It's more effortless, and I actually like the styling a little bit better. But you can't go wrong with this vehicle. We're looking forward to driving the 4Runner later this year, and just to see how Toyota's going to position these 2 vehicles side by side. I'm Ron Doran. Thanks for watching. See you next time on The Driver's Seat.